hit the other guy to win the fight, right? So it's so dangerous. So there's no place for drugs. When fighters fail drugs tests, it's not up to me. It's not up to the promoter. It's not up to the fighter what the punishment is. It's up to the commission or the license regulator, whoever, the British board here, or the difference with the boards in the world. There's lots of different states in America, and people have a different sort of take on it. Some are banned for a period of time, some are banned for a long period. And then fighters always claim innocence, right? They'll always say, they got into my system via anything. Eggs, as we've seen recently. Wild boar. We've had all sorts, haven't we? And there's been a lot of fighters that have been brushed with that potential drugs problem. And many have said, look, it's either contaminated something or somebody obviously put something in my system because I wouldn't have done it. And I guess that's the thing, Sean, going back to it. We'll never really know the truth. It is such a grey area. So I will say there is no place for drugs in the sport. However, if you've been deemed to have served, your time, your ban from it, and that's what you've done, and that's the rule, then you're then cleared to fight again. That's what it is. So, Jarrell Miller has failed tests before, but if he is cleared to fight again, and that's not up to me, that's not probably even up to him. It's up to the governing bodies, and if they decide that he's okay to fight, or any of the others to fight, not Conor Benn, we know is fighting in a couple of weeks' time, and everyone wants to see that fight. It's a huge fight, and probably most of the casuals on the street don't care. They just want to see whether Ben fights Eubank or Eubank fights Ben. But obviously no one wants drugs anywhere near it. And if Conor, who failed the test, said, look, I haven't taken drugs, maybe there's a way that something's got into his system, or it is a peculiarity. You never quite know. And because I'm not a scientist or a doctor, I can't really talk about what's in the system. All I can do is, like you, I read what's happened, and I just keep the same thing, which I think every fighter and every commentator agrees, which is there is no place for drugs in the sport. The trouble, I guess, is if you know or you think somebody has taken drugs and then the opponent thinks, well, if he's taken drugs, then I've got to try and be on the same plane. That's when you get into real trouble. So look, the best thing is the testing has to be absolutely critical. I think there should be more of it. How it's paid for. I mean, there's Turki Al-Sheikh, who's changed boxing, and Dana White coming in, and they want to make it into a sort of round UFC type thing, and I'm with one champion and all of that. And while that's going on, maybe it's where, right, they need to spend more money on the VADA testing, the very best testing we have, to try and eliminate it as much as possible. Will it ever be eliminated? I don't know, because, as I said, it's such a grey area about what is. And then there's the innocent fighters who've taken something by mistake, or have taken something from a shelf that they thought was maybe even for a cold or something, which they didn't realise was on the ban list. But really, an athlete at that level should know, his body, and should, if he fails something, be able to say, hey, look, I failed it. It may not be me. It may have got into my system in another way, but I need to take responsibility for that, because it's a failed test. Or, we're going to fight it, but if it says positive, then I've got to take the hit on this, even if I haven't willingly taken drugs. So it's a tough one.
So here's one for you. If someone is found to have performance enhancing drugs in their system, they win a fight and they've done damage to somebody else, should they be going down for GBH, manslaughter, sort of them sort of
again, that's not an area I can get into. I'm not a lawyer, a solicitor, a judge, or anything like that. So boxing's a dangerous sport. All I'll say is there is no room or no place for drugs in that sport. And you don't know. It's like with boxing, you can't have an action replay or stop something again. It happened at the weekend, not in drugs, but with David Adelaide and TKV. And David Adelaide wins by knockout. He's the British heavyweight champion, and okay, he wins. But if the referee said break a couple of times, well, what about that? Then okay, TKV's knocked out. They can't stop it, go back and start again. They have to either have a rematch or they have to accept boxing's a rough business, and once or twice these sort of things happen and hands go down, and you got to protect yourself. So it's a very difficult one. If someone is found guilty of drugs and the other guy's got badly hurt, then okay, there's going to be some sort of legal battle, you'd have thought, ensuing on that. But we ifs, buts, and maybes. All we can do is go with. I'm a commentator. I commentate on what's in front of me. I don't decide. People used to say to me at Sky, it's like, it's your fault that you're head of boxing, that's happening or whatever. Yeah, sometimes maybe it is, but ultimately I don't decide. The promoter puts the fights on. Yeah. We do talk about it, about what should go on, but the promoter is in charge of the event and what fights go on. The fighters are responsible for actually fighting, so that's another unknown or unpredictable. We as commentators commentate on it. It's like when we went to Saudi and people were saying you shouldn't go to Saudi Arabia. Went to Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia was the event putting on the show. I've been to Saudi many times in the last few years, and I think there's huge change going on in Saudi, and that's really good to see. So I think it's always best to stay out of the sort of areas of, what should happen like that with the drugs, whatever. I'm a commentator, I'm a broadcaster. It's not my job to decide that. I have an opinion, and my opinion is there should be no drugs in sport, full stop, in sport, but particularly boxing, because boxing is so dangerous. So no, I'd like to see drugs being eradicated, but if a fighter is found guilty, they should be putting their hands up at least to say, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of what happened and take their punishment that is administered. And the punishment, the problem is, varies from fight to fight and year to year and governing body to governing body. So maybe there is a place in the future in boxing where there is one, sort of universal governance that says this is what has to happen at British level, at European level, at world level, or maybe it has to happen at every level. But it's a lot of money. There's a huge expense in the process of VADA testing and stuff. So that's another area of difficulty.
Yes. You've mentioned a few people's names in there, like David Adelaide, who just won this weekend. What do you think about his performance? Yes, the referee did shout out sort of break, and then there was a hit. But regardless of that, he did know how to finish that shot. He looked really powerful. And I feel that, you'll probably tell us more so, there's a new era of heavyweight boxers coming through now. I was just looking it up. He's 6'4"? So he's up there, because I've always seen like Mike Tyson era sort of thing. Like you had smaller heavyweights, whereas then you got to the, Tyson Fury 6'9", Joshua 6'7", 6'8" sort of thing. So he's in and around there. Do you feel that, David has a chance to fight among the top level?
Look, heavyweights have changed over the years. I was reading an old program with Cassius Clay and Henry Cooper from the 1960s the other day, and I think Clay, that's what he was, Ollie, at the time, was 13 stone something. And, you're now looking at heavyweights weighing in at 17, 18, 19 stone. And I think Lennox Lewis was a huge heavyweight. The Klitschko's too. The modern era of the sort of super heavyweight, really, because that's what they fought in the amateurs, AJ and Fury. And you look at Delicious Ore turning pro the other night, 6'6", some of these guys. And I think Joe Joyce and Filip Hrgović both around 6'5", 6'6". So these are big, big men. David Adelaide, TKV, about 6'4", I think. What did I think the other night? Look, as I said, he won the fight. The referee let it go on. He's the British heavyweight champion. Should there be a rematch? Potentially. Ben Davison and Barry Smith were going mad. They came around to our screens. The referee definitely called break. I think he called break a couple of times. But then there was earlier in the fight where TKV may have hit David after a break. So these things can happen in boxing. Matt Macklin was showing me on his way home, because he had Corey O'Regan, and he said that when Jack Rafferty hit him, the referee had his hand in there. So look, there are things that happen in there, and referees sometimes get it absolutely spot on, and sometimes it's tough being a referee too, when to call that time, and especially with heavyweights where one punch can change things and they've got to get in there. So it's a hard job being a ref. I think maybe a rematch is the fair outcome. I think TKV was boxing really well. I don't think David had a great night until that point. I spoke to Adam and Booth and David afterwards, and he didn't really let his hands go. Unfortunately, he did at that time, and he won by knockout. So I think he's got power. I think he's got a place at that, within that heavyweight table. He's the British champion now, so he'll have to show us a lot more to move into that world elite. He lost to Fabio Wardley, so but he's certainly one of the guys out there. But I think we'll see TKV come back because of that, and there's a huge amount coming through. But the guy I'm really hot on is Moses Italma. I think he's the future of the heavyweight division. I think he's a very, very talented fighter. He hits really hard. He's got beautiful feet. His timing are good. He's incredibly dedicated. And I think the most important thing about Moses is you talk to the likes of AJ, Fury,